بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Honorable and respected brothers and sisters, Jazakumullahu khairan once again for joining us, and may Allah reward you and bless you for your perseverance. It has been many weeks, many months even, since we have been in some sort of lockdown or another, and inshallah we are hopeful that the end is near, inshallah, if Allah wills. We must remember that Allah is in control of everything. Allah is in control. No government, no virus, no bacteria, no vaccine, no medication can outdo the will and power of Allah Azza wa Jal. When Allah Azza wa Jal wills, we will be relieved from this predicament, from this situation that we are in. And for as long as Allah Azza wa Jal wills, we will remain inside this predicament. We have seen glimpses, we have seen reminders that Allah can, do anything, right? So, for example, we hear about variants, and these are all, there's no predictability to this. Scientifically, from what I gather, I'm not a scientist, and what I've heard, okay, that this virus could evolve, and it could evolve to a much worse virus than it already is. But it could evolve to a much milder and less harmful, less contagious, less deadly virus than it is. Many things can happen, and these are just the kind of things that are within reach of our understanding. But in reality, Allah can do anything. A new virus can come out tomorrow that could, supersede even this one, that could take us back to square one, back past square one. All of these things are in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we should and we can never become complacent. We can never become, content that everything is okay. Allah wants us to somewhat stay on our toes. Staying on our toes doesn't mean to live a life constantly in fear and constantly in, like, what I mean by fear is crippled by fear and, anxiety, and constantly, worried and negative. No, we have to combine between hope in Allah Azza wa Jal and fear from Allah Azza wa Jal. But we should never lose any one of them, right? And at times like this, when the end seems to be in sight, it's very easy to forget the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Become very hopeful, become very optimistic, and that's good, but it should be balanced with a pinch of fear and remembrance and acknowledgement that Allah Azza wa Jal can do whatever He wants. Even if the government announces that next week the whole country is going to come back to normal because the virus has been defeated, then even like they say in the world, they say it's never over until it's over, okay? But for Muslims or for believers in Allah Azza wa Jal, even once it's over, we reflect, we think, is it really over? I mean, is it over because Allah is happy with us now? Is it over because the test is over? Or is this respite? Is this the eye of the storm, right? Meaning, have we done whatever we need to do to please Allah Azza wa Jal? And that is our criteria. That is our yardstick, how we measure how we are doing in the pandemic. First and foremost, before we look at whether the restrictions are being uplifted or not, and we do hope that the restrictions at the right time are uplifted, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to return us to a good situation. At the same time, I will recommend, brothers and sisters, if you have been, and if you are watching me now, I'm assuming you have been joining us consistently, stay with it until the end. if not for any other reason, but just to kind of an achievement within ourselves. Remember, shaitan and nafs, they always want us to give up. They want us to give up. And sometimes we have to do something, even though we've lost interest in it a little bit, even though we've kind of not seeing the benefit in it any longer, but we just want to give shaitan a kick and kick him back and say that, look, no, I'm going to persevere. I believe that this is something that Allah Azza wa Jal likes, and I will do it, regardless of whether, you know, the reason why I did it so consistently is no longer there, regardless of whether I no longer have that much interest in it, and so on and so forth. Just the fact that this, Allah loves good deeds when they are consistent, even if they are small. I will carry on doing this, and I will carry on doing this until we are out of this situation. So I do recommend to all of us that we carry on trying to, and I will, and we will, me and my colleague, we will continue, inshallah. We will try our best to continue until, you know, things are somewhat back to normal, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so we're going to recite as usual from the Quran. We completed Surah Hamim Sajda, otherwise known as Surah Fussilat, yesterday, and today we will continue from the next surah after that, which is Surah Shura. Okay, Surah Shura, inshallah ta'ala, which is the 42nd surah of the Quran. And as always, please do try to read along with us. If not, then try to follow along in the Mus'haf with your finger. And third of all, if you can't do that, then listen attentively. This will certainly be of reward and benefit, inshallah ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حميم عين سين قاف كذلك يوحي إليك وإلى الذين من قبلك الله العزيز الحكيم. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العلي العظيم. تكاد السماوات يتفطرن من فوقهن والملائكة يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويستغفرون لمن في الأرض ألا إن الله هو الغفور الرحيم. والذين اتخذوا من دونه أولياء الله حفيظ عليهم وما أنت عليهم بوكيل. وكذلك أوحينا إليك قرآنا عربيا لتنذر القرى ومن حولها وتنذر يوم الجمع لا ريب فيه فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير. ولو شاء الله لجعلهم أمة واحدة ولكن يدخل من يشاء في رحمته والظالمون ما لهم من ولي ولا نصير. أم اتخذوا من دونه أولياء فالله هو الولي وهو يحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير. وما اختلفتم فيه من شيء فحكمه إلى الله ذلكم الله ربي عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب. فاطر السماوات والأرض جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا ومن الأنعام أزواجا يذرأكم فيه ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير له مقاليد السماوات والأرض يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه بكل شيء عليم شرع لكم من الدين ما وصى به نوحا والذي أوحينا إليك وما وصينا به إبراهيم وموسى وعيسى أن أقيموا الدين ولا تتفرقوا فيه كبر على المشركين ما تدعوهم إليه الله يجتبي إليه من يشاء ويهدي إليه من ينيب وما تفرقوا إلا من بعد ما جاءهم العلم بغيا بينهم ولولا كلمة سبقت من ربك إلى أجل مسمى لقضي بينهم وإن الذين أورثوا الكتاب من بعدهم لفي شك منه مريب فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب وأمرت لأعدل بينكم الله ربنا وربكم لنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم لا حجة بيننا وبينكم الله يجمع بيننا وإليه المصير والذين يحاجون في الله من بعد ما استجيب له حجتهم داحضة عند ربهم وعليهم غضب ولهم عذاب شديد الله الذي أنزل الكتاب بالحق والميزان وما يدريك لعل الساعة قريب يستعجل بها الذين لا يؤمنون بها والذين آمنوا مشفقون منها ويعلمون أنها الحق ألا إن الذين يمارون في الساعة لفي ضلال بعيد الله لطيف بعباده يرزق من يشاء وهو القوي العزيز من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤته منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب أم لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لم يأذن به الله ولولا كلمة الفصل لقضي بينهم وإن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم ترى الظالمين مشفقين مما كسبوا وهو واقع بهم والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات في روضات الجنات لهم ما يشاءون عند ربهم ذلك هو الفضل الكبير ذلك الذي يبشر الله عباده الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى ومن يقترف حسنة نزد له فيها حسنا إن الله غفور شكور أم يقولون افترى على الله كذبا فإن يشأ الله يختم على قلبك ويمحو الله الباطل ويحق الحق بكلماته إنه عليم بذات الصدور وهو الذي يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويعفو عن السيئات ويعلم ما تفعلون ويستجيب الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ويزيدهم من فضله والكافرون لهم عذاب شديد ولو بسط الله الرزق لعباده لبغوا في الأرض ولكن ينزل بقدر ما يشاء إنه بعباده خبير بصير وهو الذي ينزل الغيث من بعد ما قنطوا وينشر رحمته وهو الولي الحميد ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض وما بث فيهما من دابة وهو على جمعهم إذا يشاء قدير وما أصابكم من مصيبة فبما كسبت أيديكم ويعفو عن كثير وما أنتم بمعجزين في الأرض وما لكم من دون الله من ولي ولا نصير ومن آياته الجوار في البحر كالأعلام إن يشأ يسكن الريح فيظللن رواكد على ظهره إن في ذلك لآيات لكل صبار شكور أو يوبقهن بما كسبوا ويعفو عن كثير ويعلم الذين يجادلون في آياتنا ما لهم من محيص فما أوتيتم من شيء فمتاع الحياة الدنيا وما عند الله خير وأبقى للذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون والذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش وإذا ما غضبوا هم يغفرون والذين استجابوا لربهم وأقاموا الصلاة وأمرهم شورى بينهم ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين إذا أصابهم البغي هم ينتصرون وجزاء سيئة سيئة مثلها فمن عفا وأصلح فأجره على الله إنه لا يحب الظالمين ولمن انتصر بعد ظلمه فأولئك ما عليهم من سبيل إنما السبيل على الذين يظلمون الناس ويبغون في الأرض بغير الحق أولئك لهم عذاب أليم ولمن صبر وغفر إن ذلك لمن عزم الأمور ومن يضلل الله فما له من ولي من بعده وترى الظالمين لما رأوا العذاب يقولون هل إلى مرد من سبيل وتراهم يعرضون عليها خاشعين من الذل ينظرون من طرف خفي وقال الذين آمنوا إن الخاسرين الذين خسروا أنفسهم وأهليهم يوم القيامة ألا إن الظالمين في عذاب مقيم وما كان لهم من أولياء ينصرونهم من دون الله ومن يضلل الله فما له من سبيل استجيبوا لربكم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا مرد له من الله ما لكم من ملجأ يومئذ وما لكم من نكير فإن أعرضوا فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا إن عليك إلا البلاغ وإنا إذا أذقنا الإنسان منا رحمة فرح بها وإن تصبهم سيئة بما قدمت أيديهم فإن الإنسان كفور لله ملك السماوات والأرض يخلق ما يشاء يهب لمن يشاء إناثا ويهب لمن يشاء الذكور أو يزوجهم ذكرانا وإناثا ويجعل من يشاء عقيما إنه عليم قدير وما كان لبشر أن يكلمه الله إلا وحيا أو من وراء حجاب أو يرسل رسولا فيوحي بإذنه ما يشاء إنه علي حكيم وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah, we completed recitation of Surah Ash-Shura. So that was the 42nd surah of the Quran, which we just completed, Surah Ash-Shura. Inshallah, from tomorrow we will continue from Surah Az-Zukhruf, if Allah Azza wa Jal wills. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept our recitation of the Quran, our listening to the recitation of the Quran. We ask Allah to make it a means of happiness and success for us, first and foremost in the hereafter, but also a means of happiness, blessings, contentment, satisfaction, sakina, and strength for us in this world, and a cure and shifa from all illnesses, spiritual, physical, or mental. Inshallah, we will continue reading from the book Shawq Watan, Yearning for the Homeland. And yesterday we read a statement which is attributed to the great Sahabi Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala an, where he's reported to have said, Tuhfatul mu'minil mawtu, that the gift of a believer is death, meaning the ultimate gift to a believer is death. And that's why Muslims, we spoke in relative detail about this yesterday. And another thing which came to mind just literally now is, we often see that when Muslims are victims to crimes, that they seem to deal with it so well. Famously in the public eye, like in I can't remember which year, was it 2011 or something, when there were riots in Ramadan, and eventually it culminated in the murder of two young brothers in Birmingham, and their father became almost a national hero overnight because of how he dealt with and how he coped with and how he remained calm and collected at the death of his own sons. Now, I don't expect or suggest that anybody, should be like that. Meaning, what I mean by that is, I don't, that's a massive feat. I'm not saying that every Muslim is going to be able to deal with it in the same way, but it was clear that what made him able to deal with it in that manner was his faith in Allah Azza wa Jal. So if that faith can help somebody get over the loss of their two sons, their two own children, which according to what people say, I say because people say, because I don't know what it's like, and I don't ever hope to find out. But to lose a person's children, especially in circumstances like that, is perhaps one of the most, if not the most, challenging and difficult things that a person can go through in life. And what kept him firm was his faith. So if your faith can get you through something so difficult like that, then what about our own deaths? Compared to that, it's not really much. It's not really much compared to that. Yes, it is a lot. I mean, I don't have the right to say, I'm more in need than anybody else of, these reminders. So I say this to myself. So let us try to think that, we will leave this world and we will go back to Allah Azza wa Jal, inshallah. The next narration. Let me just pull it up properly. Give me a moment. Just looking for my notes. Yes. So the next hadith goes as follows. عن محمود بن لبيد رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: اثنتان يكرههما ابن آدم يكره الموت والموت خير للمؤمن من الفتنة ويكره قلة المال وقلة المال أقل للحساب. رواه أحمد. A little known, meaning a not such a famous, but a noble Sahabi radiallahu anhu nonetheless, Mahmud bin Labid narrates that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there are two things which the son of Adam dislikes. He dislikes them. He dislikes death. وَالْمَوْتُ خَيْرٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِ مِنَ الْفِتْنَةِ. Whereas death is better for a believer than fitna. وَيَكْرَهُ قِلَّةَ الْمَالِ. And he dislikes a deduction or a deficiency or a scarcity of wealth. وَقِلَّةُ الْمَالِ أَقَلُّ لِلْحِسَابِ. And a little wealth or a small amount of wealth is smaller in account. Meaning, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, he's almost showing his amazement and his wonder and his surprise at the state of the human being. Ibn Adam, the son of Adam, means a human being. That the human being dislikes two things that in reality are better for them than so many other things that could come in their place. The first thing is that the human dislikes death. They look at death as something horrible, something scary, something ghastly, something that they don't like. Whereas death is better than falling into fitna. Fitna, what is fitna? Fitna is a very broad term. Fitna is a very broad term. In this context, it usually means trials and tribulations and tests. Trials, tribulations, and tests. Anything which puts your faith and your conduct and your morals at risk. That is a fitna, right? Fitna is anything which puts your deeds, your iman, your devotion to Allah Azza wa Jal, your taqwa at risk. And the Prophet ﷺ said that death is better than fitna. I mean, why do you want to stay alive for so long? Because fitna is always around the corner. Fitna is always around the corner. And one of the things that pious Muslims have often made dua for, Allahumma idha aradta biqawmin fitna faqbidni ilayka ghayra maftunin. Oh Allah, when you decide to place a community or my community into fitna, faqbidni ilayka ghayra maftunin. Ghayra maftun. Then take me back to you without testing me. Meaning they were so scared of fitna. They were so scared of trials and tribulations that would put their iman and their morals and their ethics and their character at risk, that they would rather die. That they would rather die. They wouldn't take their own life, because we know, look, Islam is not a, this black and white sensationalist religion that, oh, if death is better than that, then go and kill yourself. No, it's not permissible to end your life in Islam. But they feared fitna so much that they asked Allah Azza wa Jal to take them from this world before the fitna comes. Death was more beloved to them. Death was more beloved to them than even, than fitna. Fitna was so scary to them that they would rather die than they would face fitna. So death is something that believers, a true believer covets, a true believer looks forward to death. That doesn't mean he actually wants to put himself in harm's way, right? That he wants to put himself in harm's way because he's not allowed to, right? He's not allowed to. There are so many things in life that we love, we like, but we're not allowed to have it. Okay, we're not allowed to have it. For example, a person can go to, a car showroom and they can look at a car and they can really like that car, right? If they can't afford it and or it doesn't belong to them, they can't take it. There was nothing like legally wrong with them liking that car, but they're not allowed to have it, right? So just because you can or you should like something, it doesn't mean you can have it, or you should actively go and seek it and try to take it before it is your due right. So likewise, death is something that believers, the strong believer, the true believer looks forward to, right? And aspires to, and in reality can't wait for. I say true believer, and I know this is not my situation, because when we say true believer, we mean one that has, the kind of faith and the kind of conviction that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum had. And we are not like that. I'm not like that. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make me like that and to make all of us like that. So the son of Adam, the human being, dislikes death, whereas death is better for him than fitna, right? And this is a kind of, this is a principle for us in life, right? That sometimes, look, if there is a fitna, then if you can't fix it, then just save at least yourself from it. If you can't, in Islam, it's not like this. If you can't beat them, join them. If you can't beat them, join them. No. If people are in fitna, if a fitna is happening, then if you can't prevent it, if you can't solve it, if you can't remove it, then at least save yourself, right? We don't want to get involved, right? At least we want to save ourselves. وَيَكْرَهُ قِلَّةَ الْمَالِ, right? Sorry, I'm going back to the same point again. We see this often in family situations. In families, for example, there's a debate, there's a disagreement, there's a dispute, perhaps about wealth, about inheritance, about something else in the family. And there are like two parties. There's the strong party, and the strong party is in the wrong, and they're in the wrong. They are abusing their strength, and they are serving an injustice upon the smaller, weaker party. Now, if you stay with that stronger party, then your haqq will be preserved, right? Or you will get, a small amount. You will get perhaps your fair share, right? But the honorable and the dignified thing to do is to if you can't put things right, the best thing is to stand up for the truth if you can, right? And to put things right. But if you can't, don't join them, because the believer would rather die than become entangled in fitna. The believer would rather die than become entangled in fitna. If there is doubt there, okay, I don't want my part, I'll forego my part, right? Because I don't want to get involved in this. I don't want to be party to this. I don't want to benefit from that. Okay, now I'm not making a judgment or giving you specific advice about any scenario you might be in. When you are in a difficult scenario, don't go by generic statements like the one I've just made. Go and get specific advice. Get advice from a mufti, from an imam, from a scholar, someone who you trust. Get practical advice from people who are sincere and who are wise as well. Moving on, وَيَكْرَهُ قِلَّةَ الْمَالِ, and the son of Adam, the human being, dislikes a scarcity of wealth, dislikes poverty, in other words. Whereas poverty is lighter in the account, right? Meaning, when you have less wealth, you have less to account for. We know that the fuqara will enter Jannah first. The fuqara will enter Jannah first. The fuqara will enter Jannah years before the rich people. Sorry, the poor people. Fuqara means the poor, the destitute people. They will enter Jannah, they will enter paradise years and years and years and years before the rich people. So if Allah Azza wa Jalla hasn't given you, hasn't given me, hasn't given one of us much wealth, it is something that naturally we will dislike, but we should remind ourselves that inshallah I will have less to answer for. I will inshallah be happy about this in Day of Judgment. And definitely, if we leave this world having suffered poverty and died in poverty, or not had much to answer for, when our hisab will finish early and we will enter Jannah before all those people who will be drowning in their sweat, worrying about all of those millions and those billions and those thousands and all of that wealth that they had, then we will have the last laugh on that day. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us all from those people who don't fear anything more than they fear Him, and who fear nothing other than Him. And I ask Him to make us from those people who do not dislike or fear death, and to give us the strength in Iman that is needed, that overcomes that fear, and to give us love for Him so that we yearn to meet Him and to go back to Him. And I ask Him to grant us all the ability to prepare for our deaths before our death comes. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, on Wednesday, the hope and plan is that we will try to go through the next installment of our series on seeing off a loved one, what to do, and this will be more practical about the janaza, the bathing, the janaza, the janaza prayer, and so on and so forth. So it's probably what more of us need, meaning in the time of a burial, there's one person who usually coordinates everything, but several people participate in the janaza and stuff like that. So we will go through some of the things, inshallah. If you join us, you will be most welcome, and you will be rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal for the time that you will spend in His remembrance. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.